There'll be two premieres, well, three. There'll be one in London, there'll be one in Birmingham, and then there will be one in Indonesia as well, because our female lead is Indonesian. So we head to Jakarta.
How did you do the casting for Rupture?
The casting for Rupture, a lot of it was I'd already had everyone in mind. And it was just about me putting out a phone call to all my actors and being like, are you available in this date? This is what I need you for. This is what the role is. And 99% of them were available. Mark was brought in last minute, just because obviously, we were going through the motion of trying to find a lead, someone that we thought would be able to suit the role and suit the role of not only the character, but a cyberpunk movie, and just Mark's look in general, because it's quite, like, his physique is quite broad and, he's menacing looking. But then, like, when you look at his softer side, like when you're shooting him from a certain way or a certain angle, you can see that his character is not actually intended to be that way, but he's having to be that way. And that was why I was drawn to Mark. I was introduced to Mark, I think, early last year, but then me and Mark had spoken the previous year about doing another movie. So I'd known Mark beforehand, and getting to work with him was a pleasure. I mean, the guy's a beast. Like, he puts 110% into the role, and then he gets really frustrated when he's not nailing the role, which is great, because obviously, I know that he wants to give the best performance possible. I've had the fortunate opportunity of working with Mark twice now on two movies, and Rupture was the first one. There's another one coming out next year called Digging No Grave, which is a thriller movie. But in regards to the rest of the casting, I like to work with the same people. The way that Tarantino works with Sam Jackson or Scorsese works with DiCaprio, I have my set of people that I like to work with constantly. Like, my guy is Jay Bryhan, and I've worked with him for the last 12 years, or in almost everything. And, whether it's a small role, like a secondary role or lead role, I like to put James in everything, because he's like my go-to guy. He's my muse for everything. Whenever I have a script or I'm writing, I'm like thinking, where can I put James? And David Lamont, who's also the main villain in the movie. David just started his acting academy. He was trying to find a balance and time with these guys and trying to see where we can put them. But yeah, I have my go-to people who are like in almost every one of my movies.
Can you tell us about the makeup and prosthetic design and the inspirations behind them, particularly for One-Eyed Sanford?
Yeah, the makeup and prosthetic was because I wanted to go with a cyberpunk look, obviously. So the mechanical look, the cybernetic, little elements that they have, the microchips was a big thing, because I was like, yes, I'm making a cyberpunk movie, but there needs to be elements of cyberpunk in there. And I looked at different movies like Blade Runner and stuff, and although they're great movies, there's very little use of prosthetics in terms of like microchipping or like cybernetic enhancements. And I was like, well, how can I amplify that? So we brought on our makeup artist, who I'd given all the references to, and she purchased everything that she needed to buy. And it was a matter of, okay, now where do we place these on the actors? And with our lead villain, which is David Lamont, I had a big microchip thing, like magnetic thing, that I wanted to put on the back of his head, but we need to shave his head for it, which he willingly did. But I know that James, who's One-Eyed Sanford, was not going to shave his head for anything. So I was like, so how do we make James look villainy looking? I was like, so I created this backstory for his character. And long story short is he loses an eye. And I was like, well, because he's a villain, wouldn't it be cool just to replace his eye with a microchip? Because all of the villains in the movie, they got microchips on the side of their head. I was like, let's just scrap that. Let's just give him a microchip in his eye. And that was created, and that prosthetic was created for him. It was a brand new prosthetic created every day. It wasn't just like it was just one glued on piece. It was a prosthetic created from scratch every single day. And it was like a 35, 40 minute period of time that I had to spend on creating that. And I think the outcome looks great. And I think James pulled that off quite well. All of the movie just looking through one eye.
Can you tell us about the design of the visual effects for Rupture?
Yeah, the visual effects again, they were inspired by Ghost in the Shell and Blade Runner, the latest one, 2049. Because I've always loved holograms. Um, I have no idea how they work, but they just look so great, and there's something so captivating about looking at them. And in my first movie, I'd made sure that I had holograms in it, which is Exile the Chosen Ones. There are a few moments in the movie where we get to see those holograms, but then I had the opportunity to make this cyberpunk movie where it's 100% all holograms. And I was like, okay, that's cool, man, but I can't make the whole movie holograms. So I was like, I need to pick specific areas where the holograms are going to serve the movie, because the holograms in itself also serve a purpose in telling the story. And then, yes, they're there to look beautiful, and they're there to give that element of futuristic look. But I was like, they need to be placed strategically within the movie, and they need to have a meaning behind it. Now, whether the audience pick up on that meaning or not is beside the point, but they need to be there. And and then selecting the different types of holograms and the VFX were quite tedious as well, because I was like very specific with what I wanted. Because there's a few restaurant scenes in the movie, and I was like, well, rather than just having random holograms, let's put in food holograms, where it's like a burger spinning, or like a Coke bottle turning, or some fries turning. I was like, it needs to be very specific to that element in that scene, and that's what we did. And the VFX were just kind of finished recently. I know that when we showed the preview at the Fighting Spirit Film Festival, we just showed segments of the movie. So the segments that were selected were the finished ones. So there's a lot of the movie which was still not shown, which has a lot of great VFX in it. And hopefully when the movie comes out and everybody sees it, and they can see that, okay, that this is the meaning behind the holograms of the VFX.
How was your experience shooting Rupture? What was the first day of set like, and were there any challenges you had to face on set?
Every day was a challenge. Not one day is the same as the next. It's every day has its own challenges. In challenges, it could be location, it could be catering, it could be crew or cast members. Sometimes I think the biggest challenge is yourself in trying to stay creative in such long, enduring days where you're exhausted both mentally and physically. I think that's one of the biggest challenges, to try and stay creative and try and stay fresh every day. And because you are the captain of the whole team, you're the captain of the ship. If the captain is not performing, the rest of the team is not going to perform. So, it's for me, naturally, I'm a very positive person. So, to try and keep that morale up every day, it's quite easy for me, but then it's quite draining at the same time to try and stay happy and focused all the time when you yourself are not fully there. And what was the other part of the question?
What was the first day of set like?
The first day of set was, I can't remember what the first day of shooting was. Oh no, the first day of shooting was the opening of the movie, and it was great because it's first day, it's fresh, it's new, it's day one. Everyone's excited to be on set, and seeing the opening scene of the movie as the first day of the shoot was great, because I got to see Mark be his character Raven Black for the first time, and just see what he'd look like on camera. So that was a very exciting day. We filmed for I think 12, 13 hours that day, and it was incredible. And we filmed a whole segment that day. I think we did 3 or 4 scenes that day actually in the first day, and we did quite a bit. But yeah, day one is always exciting. It's always nerve-wracking, because depending on who you're working with, sometimes it's a new crew, so it's kind of like gelling with each other and having to get to know each other. And sometimes it works perfectly, sometimes it doesn't. It takes a couple of days to gel, but ultimately you have to make it work, because obviously these are your team, and if you're not getting along with your team, the movie's not going to be good.
What was your favorite part of the final edit?
Taking a deep breath and saying, I'm done. The final edit, it's taken almost 8 months to complete, just because it's a very VFX heavy movie and there's a lot of action in it. So to try and get all the elements right, and to try and get everyone's opinion on it is quite draining in itself, because you have like 6, 7 producers who are giving you different answers and different opinions, and to try and fulfill everybody's needs is sometimes very hard. So then it kind of takes away from your own vision. So at some point you kind of have to, and I've learned this the hard way, you have to stop being a yes man all the time, and you have to be sometimes a no man and say no to a lot of things. Even though even though some things may serve the story, but ultimately you as a creative, as the person in charge of heading this vehicle, if you're not true to your vision, then it's kind of pointless making the movie. Yes, it's great to have input and take everyone's advice and to make the necessary adjustments and changes. But then also you have to be faithful to yourself, because if you're not faithful to yourself, then who are you really making a movie for? Because first and foremost, you have to make a movie for yourself, then the audience, then everybody else. Because if you're not serving yourself creatively, because that's the reason we get into artistic, forms of stuff, painters, writers, directors, whatever. We do this to fulfill, and a lot of people will probably say no, but it's true, and it is inside them. They do this to fulfill a void, whatever that void is. Be there to fill that void. And for me, I have a lot of voids in life. I'm sure everybody does. For me, my fulfillment is by making movies and watching movies, and that's a very big thing for me. And if I'm not doing that and loving doing it, then I go back to feeling like I have a void, right? So yeah, it's the final cut was me being happy with everything, um, and giving it to the producers, and all of them just gave me a thumbs up, and I was like, thank you. No more notes. I can finally sign off on this movie now, and it can go into the hands of the distributors, and they can just do whatever they need to do with it. I need a break. Because like I said, it is like mentally and physically exhausting. Mentally being because you're editing for 10, 12 hours a day, it becomes very tiring. And when you sleep, you're thinking of the edit. When you wake up, you're thinking of the edit. When you eat, you're thinking of the edit. And then physically, because you're sitting on a computer for 10, 12 hours a day, and it's not doing your body any good. And like, I think a lot of filmmakers who also edit their own movies, and I think they'll agree with me, you get a lot of back pain, a lot of your legs start hanging, cramping up, and it's great to get up for a 10, 15-minute walk around to get a stretch, but it is mentally and physically grueling on the body. Now, you should be asking me, then why are you a filmmaker? Well, because I love doing it. Anybody that tells you it's not hard work is lying. It's very hard work, especially if you're doing it as a business. If you're doing it for fun, then okay, it's a different thing. But if you're doing it as a business and you're there to recoup investment for your finances and to get the movie out to a wider audience, it's a lot of work, a lot of hard work.
What do you hope audiences take away from watching the film?
I hope audience will take away from the film that this is obviously Mark Strange's first lead role in a movie. Hopefully they can see Mark perform in a way that they haven't seen him perform before, because I know we used to see Mark in like various different roles, but seeing him full front and center, I think is a very different experience for the audience. And I think the character that he's created from my writing, I think is far beyond what I expected. Also, it's the first ever cyberpunk movie, as far as I'm aware, to be shot in Birmingham. And as far as I'm aware, there have been no other movies, and if there are, sorry, but we're the first ones. So yeah, I mean, like, I hope that the takeaway that it's not just an action movie, and it's not just about kicking and punching people for 90 minutes. It's a movie with heart and soul. It's a movie about emotional connection between your spouse, about doing what is right, even if in the eyes of many other people it's wrong, and doing things for the greater good of your loved ones. Everyone's faced betrayal in their lives at some point or another, whatever that betrayal is, but everyone has faced it. And the betrayal that Mark goes through in his character, I know a lot of people will connect with it. Even though his character in the movie essentially is a villain, he's almost like an anti-hero because he's like neither good or bad. You know, he's bad because he does bad things, but he's good because he's not meaning to do them. You know, he's unintentionally put into bad scenarios and he's in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so when the audience watched the movie, I just hope that they love the visual look of the movie, the story, and you know, the world that we've created. And for anybody that's watched my first movie or will watch my first movie, Exiled, they can see a connection between the two movies.
And time for the speed round. So for the speed round, you pick one film for each category.
Okay.
What is the first film you ever watched?
Wow. It.
What underrated film do you think deserves more attention?
Oh, man. Moonlight.
What is your favorite film by your favorite filmmaker?
Oh, man. I have a lot of filmmakers of them that I'm really enjoying. I'll say one just off the top of my head. Chad Stahelski, John Wick. What
is the next film you're going to watch?
Next one I'm going to watch, my own one. I watched like 20 minutes before we had this meeting. We just finished to edit on my last movie, so I'm just currently watching that one.
Which cinematic universe would you like to live in? For example, the Grand Budapest Hotel, X-Men, MCU.
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Even though it gets a lot of flack, I think the DCEU, I think just because it has a lot of potential.
Well, that's the end of the interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jess. Appreciate it.